Hey y'all, it's the Kings. Today, we're going to be talking about a very sad subject, actually. And it's death on the homestead and how to, I guess, deal with that. Right?
Yes.
Any elaborate on that title?
Oh, you nailed it.
Great. Okay, so it seems a little early to be talking about death in like episode 5 or whatever this will be, 6.
3.2.
Yes. However, a few things spurred this on. And we'll go ahead and start with those. On Friday last week, we picked up our new puppy. And it's funny because whenever it feels like, and it's just a superstition, but it feels like whenever we add an item, life.
No, but thank you. When we add a life, not an item.
Yes.
If we did every time we added an item, we would not have any life left.
But every time we add a life, I'm telling you, the day we pick up this puppy,
The circle of life. It is the Lion King.
Yeah.
In form.
I said, we're so excited she's here. Our Peanut loves her like it's a match made in heaven. And I literally said Friday when she came here, let's see what goes. I said, I hope nothing goes.
Yeah, not that it's superstitious or anything, but she may or may not have jinxed us.
It is uncanny. It's uncanny
well,
how
we
much.
We can't put that into the world.
No, and I hope it doesn't happen like that to everybody. But to us, it feels like every time we add an animal, we lose an animal.
It's absolutely 100%. And it's been this way since like college.
It's the worst.
It's terrible.
It's the worst.
It's terrible.
So it is. That is true. Since college.
Yes.
So anyhow, Friday we pick up our puppy. Saturday, we're hosting a birthday party, my sister's birthday party, and my cousin texts me, found a kitten. Do you want it? Taking it to the shelter if not. Okay, y'all.
Right. What do we? First of all, if you'd ended that statement at "found a kitten?" ? We would have just said, "Bring it to our house." Let alone, "Do you want it?" and we're going to take it to the shelter. Like, first of all,
come on.
we teeter on that very sharp sword, double-sided sword of a bit of arrogance. Saying, like, yeah, bring us the animal, we'll take care of it. Like, we got this. I mean, you can call us with a freaking emu. Yeah, we got it. We don't have an emu. But we're going to try.
I mean, people have called us for pigs, for goats.
Right. And we will take
do say
anything.
no. We do say no. Because there are times where we absolutely have to.
Yes, absolutely.
The goats were when we were at a suburban backyard.
We may or may not have been on the farm.
If I was offered a goat now, I'd be like,
oh, yeah, take a whole lot of them.
Do not offer me goats.
Bring us goats. All the goats.
Unless they're in milk.
Okay. No. If they're in milk, keep the goats to yourself.
Okay, anyway.
No, it's more than anything. It's if the animal truly is in need and the person does not know what to do, we do not say no.
Or have the means or want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%.
We don't. And my cousin's
there.
a great person. She's a nurse. She's a wonderful nurse. Animals,
she got 2 little boys, and she does not want to have a 3-week-old kitten. I get it.
No.
We can handle this.
Right.
This is we're kind of set up for this. So here we go.
And much like, I mean, literally almost to the day of last year when our black cat Winifred came into our lives, found this kitten in my yard. Do you want her? And it was husband who saw the text first and said, yes.
Yes.
Sure.
Are you kidding? I love cats.
Whatever.
I'm that weird cat guy.
And
who
he
also
came to
loves
me
dogs.
and was like, oh, by the way, someone texted us. It was his mom.
Yeah,
texted us she found a
Mia
kitten.
Madre.
And I said yes. And I just said, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I would have said yes too. So this year, my cousin texts me. I call him, are you still at the store? And he goes, no, why? I said, well, I need you to pick up some kitten food and possibly a flea collar or, flea bath. And he goes, what did you do?
No, see, that's not true.
What did you do?
She started with the flea stuff. And I said, no. Does Pearl have fleas? She said, no. Who has fleas? Like, who else did you find fleas on?
Right, because they're on,
superhuman let's go. We already went through this a couple months ago.
Serious.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
And that, well, you also might need kitten food. I said, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. She goes, well, and then she texted me a picture of her, and I said, well, looks like Tia will be here forever.
Amelia and Tia.
Because She was beautiful. She was the cutest little
so
thing.
beautiful.
White, black, orange, sweet little
Calico,
kitten.
yeah.
I mean, just beautiful markings, blue eyes. So, just first of all, giveaway, super young.
Right.
And
But eyes were open, and she had been on the loose in my cousin's neighborhood.
Right.
For
almost a
my
week,
cousin
short
knew
of
of 5 days.
Right.
Before that, she had no idea.
Right.
At one point, they caught her eating an onion.
Right.
Like in a garden or
and,
like trash
and the
or something.
vet told us that, I said, she's 4 weeks, right? And they said, maybe. I mean, she was,
I didn't know
she
that.
was super young. I
Yeah.
mean, she was, poor thing. And we learned a lesson. We learned some lessons. We also learned that this is kind of part of who we are. And it's a realization of course, we're going to take that poor little animal. I mean,
Well,
we're
I
going
just
to do
thought
everything
God
we can
was
do.
even in the score. We got a 5th dog,
Of
so we had to have
course,
a 5th cat.
naturally,
I mean, that
right.
just makes sense, right?
Or was he preparing us for something else?
Right. So,
You never know what
spoiler
lesson we're
alert,
getting.
Tia didn't make it, and it was
yes,
it was awful.
it was
like
not fun.
I'm not a vet tech. It makes me want to go to vet tech school so I can like actually kind of
I told
know.
you could do it.
I
You
know.
should
I
as
don't
well.
actually
Now, you
want to be a
could.
vet
Of course
tech.
you can do
I want to
whatever
be a
you
vet
want.
tech like for
you
my
can
own
do
house.
whatever you want, but please, if you'd like to, please do.
Like just for my own house, I'll become a
I
veterinarian.
get it. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be any easier then. But this kitten,
That being said, our small animal vet may or may not think we're vet techs.
no, we try very hard to be educated as much as possible, and experience gives
Well,
you
you
that
have
education.
to, absolutely, yeah. But when you have this many animals, I mean, y'all know. I mean, if you
Yeah.
have this many animals, you need to know a few things.
Right. So when you get a kitten, you judge its like age. So my other cousin had worked at vets growing up, and she's said she still has her milk teeth, but she's old enough where she could probably eat some solid. And I was like, oh, good, because we didn't get milk replacement. We got kitten food, and I was like, well, we can make it a mush, and she agreed. She didn't have any discharge in her eyes. She had no nasal fluid coming out.
Nope.
She was emaciated, but so was Winifred last year.
She was emaciated to a point. I would honestly think that Winifred was a little bit worse off, but she also
But she
had
was
that,
older. A
of
little
course,
older.
absolutely, yes, about a week or two, which is a huge deal in that short
Right,
time frame.
right.
And then she also had a bit of a bloated belly. And so that bloated belly always makes you feel like it's like worms or something weird like that. I mean, that's just part of, little kittens. I mean, they just, for all we know, she ate something right before she came over here, so she's swollen. Because
Right.
that's the way it is. And so we did give her some, mushed food and stuff like that. And she
drank
ate it.
water.
She drank water. She ate
used
the
a litter
food.
box.
She used a litter
She
box.
did everything.
5 times.
Yeah,
She
because my
TT'd
cousin
3 times.
My cousin didn't know, and gave her tuna and cow's milk, which isn't the best, but at least it was something on her.
It was absolutely
Yeah.
nourishment. It was good
Definitely not the
protein. It was
best.
all the things that she needed. I mean, that was the best you can do. I mean, when we found Leah, for the record, the matriarch of this chaos,
Yeah.
I fed her taco meat.
She was like 3 months old though.
Fully seasoned taco meat.
This goes along the lines of how many animals do we actively get?
Oh, well, of course, yeah.
Pearl, Shay, Willow. That's literally.
Kari.
Oh, Kari.
Gracious me. Earmuffs, Kari.
Every single other animal in this house or outside this house, minus some birds, literally showed up.
I'm about
at
to say,
our
we
door.
can't even tell that story like that anymore.
No.
Yeah. Non-bird, how many animals did we actively get?
I guess you actively got Marie because you trapped her
Marie.
at your office.
She's
Anyhow,
beautiful. She's a bobcat. Her name's Marie.
nothing said that this cat was going to die, but there was just this gut feeling like this is something's.
She was moving. She was walking. She was
Yeah.
jumping in and out of the litter box.
I just didn't feel confident about
right.
it.
Absolutely. And it was
So-
because she was so young, and we didn't quite realize how young she was. We just had this feeling.
We kept saying 4 weeks. I didn't know the vet said like maybe.
Maybe.
But so
I mean,
anyway,
he was
I
like,
called
"Oh."
the emergency vet line that night, and they didn't answer. And I was like, maybe I'm just being paranoid. Like I'll call in the morning,
Right.
Because this was Saturday, so of course I'd have to call the emergency line in the morning. And so I was like, all right, I'll do that. She's doing all the right things. Come the next morning.
She just.
Oh, and I'd given her a bath. When they're that little,
Oh, they're right. You don't want to flea treat them
You
because the
can't
chemical and all that stuff
Right.
is too much. And
so I gave her a warm bath with a little bit of Dawn, not much, and it just helps kill the
but
fleas.
seriously, like you want to talk about like 911 things you need to have on the farm? Dawn.
Yes,
Dawn is like the
very
greatest
helpful.
stuff
It
ever.
is very helpful.
I mean, it works on every animal. It's the safest. Like, you could drink it. I mean, don't drink it, but I'm saying, like, it's not going to hurt you. Like,
Right.
it's fantastic
Right.
for baby animals. Like,
Well,
the best stuff ever.
and we made sure she was dry, and I literally flea combed her for like a long, long time.
Yes.
And
then
I did-
took over and did a little bit too.
Yeah, and I did find while I was flea combing her, there was this crackle on her near her
cage.
back.
Those
It
are
was-
rib cage.
yeah,
Those right there, yeah.
Right. On both sides. And so of course I'm like, okay, that's not right. So I'm looking into it, and it was I've already forgotten what the
It was
actual name
air.
is. But it's air.
It was air within the body,
It's-
like outside of the organs.
It's air trapped under the skin.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's best for you.
And subcutaneous emphysema. That's what it is.
Fat tack.
I'm not. I would. No, I'm not. But it's a sign of trauma. A lot of times it can be a pinprick, like where that has let in air, or it can be a real sign of trauma. So, of course, that alerted me, and I was like, okay, that's a problem.
And it literally sounds like, you know those little crinkle toys that you buy a dog that have just like, it almost sounds like a crumpled up water bottle. Like, you literally touch your animal and you can feel it under your fingers going.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that is like call the vet.
Yeah. So come next morning, she's gone to the bathroom, but she's unable to move. She hasn't moved. And he was like, she's crawling. And I was like, well, that's weird, because yesterday she was walking.
Right.
So we get in there, and I start trying to put, like, water on her gums to see if she can start, like, swallowing.
Well, yeah, at this point, me and Tiny and I had already gone to get her milk replacement.
Yeah, because
And
we
so
were like,
that's when
okay,
you-
maybe
like,
she
needs
is
some-
so young.
Right.
We can kind of drip some
She did not look that young.
nourishment into her. Anyway, he called me on the way home, and things had taken a huge turn for the worse. She was arching her neck back. She had no reflex when I tried to, like, see if her eyes would blink if I put my hand near them. It was awful. It was really awful. And he called, and I said, she's dying. And he said, what? I said, she's dying right here. I had her on a heat pad because she was freezing.
Her temperature had dropped.
Yeah, her temperature had dropped significantly, so she was on a heat pad with a towel. And we didn't do a heat pad overnight because, especially if they're unable to move at any point, it can scald them even through the towel. It can really injure them even on a low, especially something that small. And it's a fire hazard to have a heat pad on all night. So he looked at me. I called the emergency vet. And I said, okay, listen, are you open? Like, we have this little kitten that someone brought to us. I guess it was sick before, but we don't know what to do, but we're gonna bring it in. Because at this point, we've exhausted all efforts. And I'm thinking to myself, like, you dumbass. You're one of those people that
Explicit.
I'm sorry. But you're one of those people that thinks they're like a savior coming to save the day, and you're making it worse.
Right.
So, and I never want to be that person.
No, right,
I never want to be
No, that's a great point.
that
So
person.
great.
I'd love to be a wildlife rehabber one day. That's one of our side
Like
goals.
certified. Yes, absolutely.
And I have all the things to study, and I've studied before, and I haven't gotten the license yet. That is on my radar. But I am not that yet, and obviously this isn't wildlife. And I'm not a vet, and I don't know all the answers. So at some point, like, give up.
Right.
And ask for help.
And call the professionals.
So we did, and of course they...
We say that. I mean, if you have the means. I mean, it's kind of part of taking on the animals that need the help. Like, we understand that we're gonna... I mean, the number one question when you come to the emergency vet, hello, what is your name? What is the animal's name? I'm not, like, we haven't named her. I don't know. You know, like, she's so little, we just got her. Do you accept financial responsibility? Well, yes, that's why I'm here.
Right.
But apparently that's not a normal answer.
No.
I mean, a lot of people, they come and they say, no, absolutely not. I just thought y'all could help. I mean,
Well,
we're very blessed that we can take on that responsibility as much as possible because that...
and we know our limits.
Absolutely, we know our limits, but it's
Yeah.
also, I feel like that's like part of our calling.
I'm never going to let an animal suffer.
I can't let money be in the way of an animal
Exactly.
suffering.
So when I called and they told me how much it was going to be, and of course it wasn't cheap. It's Sunday. It's an emergency vet. Like, of course this isn't cheap. I looked at him and told him, and he's on the floor with this little kitten. He's trying to drop milk and see if she has a swallow reflex. And he looked at me and said, I'm down if you're down. And I said, yeah. I mean,
Like,
what are we going to do? Watch her die on our bathroom floor?
I can't do it.
Like
I can't do it.
No, and you know what?
And I don't say I can't.
A lot of people will look at us and say, that's a weakness. Like, why would you spend that much money on
some
an
people,
animal?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
No, a lot of people don't feel that same empathy for them. I don't understand that. But they look at us like, you idiot. Like, you could have saved another kitten for the money that you spent trying to save this kitten.
Yeah,
knowing that this one was probably going to die. Because, of course, we knew at this point, like,
right, we're
it was
done
probably going to die. It was in, like, a coma.
But we needed that poor kitten to not just, we didn't need anything. There's needs and wants. It was not right for us to allow that kitten to just lie here in our home and go that way. We felt like we could have at least given one more little attempt because she took such a hard turn, and then we could help her move on.
And not only that, selfishly,
peaceful.
I'm not a vet. I'm not a vet tech. Well, not just I don't want to watch it. I want to know what the hell's wrong. Like, I need to learn from this experience.
Absolutely.
And make sure that did the bath hurt her? Like, what did I do that affected this outcome?
Right.
What did I not do? Like,
right.
What did I miss? And how can I learn from this experience? So, turns out her blood sugar was
shockingly low.
Yeah, and
her temperature wouldn't even read, and I had her on a heating pad. Like, I didn't. We had her on a heating pad, and then I kept her in my lap, in between my legs, with the heated seats on full blast on the ride to the vet, and she still did not register on the temperature. I mean, and the vet, I mean, interestingly enough, we come from a big, small town. May or may not have known the vet for, the last, 12 years, and he popped in and said, dude, there was, nothing you could have done. Like, y'all did everything you could have done, and we could try all these things, and she has a negative 2% chance. He's like, there's just no way. Like, you just, I know it stinks, and we appreciate you trying, but... And then once I told him the whole story of how she got to us and what happened before, he said, yeah, I mean, a kitten this old being away from their mother and real nutrients for the last 4 days, he's like, yeah, dude, you could have gotten the kitten 2 days ago, and, it would have been an absolute freaking struggle because that's just the way life is. I mean, they're too young. They were just too young.
Yeah.
And... all that being said, it does not make it any easier.
No. So, what happens is, 5 years ago, I would have been an absolute basket case. I would have boo-hoo cried. I would have been so sad that this little life never had a chance, and just, we weren't able to help it. That would have hurt me so deeply. And I'm not going to say I've gotten, hardened over time. And
I'm not going to tell you that I didn't shed a tear.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, just we just didn't boo-hoo for 3 days. I mean,
right.
it was still tough.
But
gracious.
You get this, as it comes with experience. You get this practicality that comes to you, where you look at a situation, and in this kitten's case, at some point I said she's going to die, and if she had not, woohoo, that would have been awesome. But if I can look at it and see that that's going to happen, then I don't allow myself to get so caught up in it emotionally, which is difficult in itself and can be seen as...
It's also... Yes, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to... It's also... It's a realization and a confidence in we did everything we could.
Yes, I talked to our vet tech friend who works at our vet's office that day also.
Yeah, we may or may not be on text message basis of our
I love all of
vets.
them.
They're amazing.
They are. I love all our vets.
All of them.
All of them.
I mean, small animal, large animal, they're all fantastic.
We see them all the time.
All the time.
So.
I mean, I may be speaking out of turn, and maybe we can have them as guests and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of enjoy coming to see us because we do our best to make sure everything is
We do our best.
Copacetic,
I
and
think
we
a lot
work
of-
really
yeah.
hard and try as much as we
Yeah.
can. I mean, if you're gonna make me choose between going to do this party or take care of your animal, y'all could just say, like, I'm not even like, no,
Right,
like I'm gonna
right.
hang out with my animals. So, and they appreciate that.
Yeah, because
So-
we try really hard.
Absolutely.
So anyway, she also confirmed that we did everything we could, and there's this thing called fading kitten syndrome, and like
Yes.
you don't
I mean,
realize that they're at
seriously.
that point
had
until
cats for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of this one.
well, and then apparently they can just like
Right,
drop,
just
be done.
And it is
And
the
there's
blood
nothing
sugar
you can
levels.
do,
The
yeah.
blood sugar levels is the key factor in that.
And they shot this little kitten up with dextrose. Dextrose.
No, glucose. Oh no, you're right. Dextrose. Yeah,
twice,
yeah, right, correct.
and there was no response.
No.
So anyway, this long story is the preface, unfortunately, to the rest of the story, and then of course we'll talk about how we've come this far and what we've learned. So that was Sunday. We lost this little kitten.
That was Sunday.
And I had to
I was about to say it was
explain-
Saturday.
I had to explain to Peanut that she died and she would
Yes.
not be coming back.
Yes. Unfortunately, we had already had that experience, so that Tiny understood because of a chicken who was very old.
Yeah, it was our vet tech's chicken.
It was our vet check chicken. And we
Just P.S. She died. If you're listening,
Oh, terrible!
haven't told her.
Stop it. Okay, we have to tell her before you post this. That's horrible.
Sorry.
Stop laughing. It's your nervous coping mechanism. So, ironically enough, we had named that chicken Granny
She was
because
old.
she was so old, and she was she was a silver chicken, but she was so old that you could just tell she just was older than everyone else. So we named her Granny, and then poor Tiny just understood, like, Granny not here.
Well, it just so happened she saw me dispose of the body, and I didn't know she was right there. I'm not. And it it was a little, I just, like, Granny's gone, like, she's passed, like,
Right.
she's no longer here.
Exactly.
And it was a whole thing. So we've had this death conversation, and I'm not going to shelter her from death.
No,
Now, I was
it's part
going
of
to
being
shelter
here.
her of the disposal of the body, but
All the
so
things.
that goes.
Right, I mean, yes, absolutely.
But I'm not going to shelter her from death. That's part of this life. Is most days are full of life and excitement and the chaos of all these creatures on our little homestead. There are some days where we have death and wounds and sickness, and we have to handle that. That's just part of it.
And so, and I 1000% agree. That is part of our life. But if you really think about it, it's part of every life. You can't have the good without the bad. Because if you didn't have the bad, then good wouldn't be good. So you can actually think about this and be like, it's unfortunate, but it's true. There is two things we all have in common. We all poop and we all die. I mean, and these seem like faux pas that you're not allowed to talk about, but it's true because it's just the way we've all been made. I mean, animal, human, everything. So it's a lesson that, you know, our Tiny, it's one of the reasons why we're here, because we wanted her and the futures to understand, like, this is how this works. Like, this is how life is. So we're going to continue to move forward, and
you have
can
to cope.
Absolutely. And so you can just
deal.
crumble, or you can just, you know, oh, that's unfortunate. We did everything we could, but the life expectancy of a chicken is not the same as a cat, and it's not the same as a human. So we have to continue to move forward. And, you know, you can look back and say Granny didn't make it, or you can look back and say we had that kitten for 2 days and we did everything we
had
could.
That chicken for like 3 years.
Oh yeah, I mean, poor Granny. I did enjoy
No, I think
Granny.
it's just a year.
It was about a year and a half actually, but I mean, Granny was adorable, but the kitten, I mean, she was here for a very short time. So you could say, you know, well, you didn't even have her. Why would you care? Or you could say, you know, that's just part of life. Yes, but you have. We find that there has to be excuse our.
If you hear a grunt, it's from Pearl.
It's from Pearl. Seriously,
she's had a long day.
Our grandma of a freaking puppy who grunts more than anybody I've ever met. But you can find a happy medium that is. There's life, and it's beautiful, and every flower that blooms, we try to acknowledge it, and every bee that comes and acknowledges our flower bloom, and we try to help that as well, and hummingbirds and all. That's why we have some of the plants we have, to help nourish that life and that movement. But then we also, there's there's loss and there's death, and it stinks. I mean, it does. It's not fun, but it's also part of the circle. I mean, the life can be told by Rafiki. I will never Rafiki is the wise man of the world, because it's the circle of life.
Yeah, no,
it just is. I mean, and so we have to continue to move forward and keep going, and you can't recluse yourself from the happy because the sad made you sad.
Right.
Well, the sad is what made you happy, because I mean, it's left is right and right is left. I mean, you have to have both.
Well, let me get to the second part of the story.
Do we have to?
Yes, unfortunately. It's real fresh. It's real fresh. We might cry. I'm going to hold it together, though. I am. So, okay.
I might have to get another one for Pendleton.
We're both drinking whiskey, y'all. We this one was a hard one to do.
This is a tough one. We're drinking Pendleton whiskey for Pendleton. That was my boy. So if you hear any ruffles, it was me getting up to get another one.
So, Sunday night, I say, you know what? I think this week's podcast should be about death. And he goes, what? I said, this is a hard subject. And then when you throw in a
let
child.
us also, before this, so the kitten is not fun. But before that, there was also, I don't want to go too far into it.
No, I'm going to go into all that, but I'm going to finish the second part of the present story.
Oh, excuse me. I didn't understand.
We're going to go into the past.
I didn't pick up on the foreshadowing. Please proceed.
Yes, because...
Did you like that literary reference? That's a literary term. Okay. I learned that in English class.
Okay. Anyway, Monday morning.
I have to say something dumb.
Yeah. Monday morning, or after midday, I get a call from the barn owner in Athens.
Who, by the way, top 3 people in my life. I love her.
Love her.
Like, greatest woman in the world.
She really is.
I mean, truly.
And so let me preface with, we're not upset with her at all.
Absolutely not.
For this decision.
Absolutely not. She did this to protect us. If we're being honest, I mean, she did. She did it in her own way.
She put down Pendleton. Let me just put it out bluntly. Our horse, that this past summer, after years of battling his asthma and him getting pneumonia frequently, and our vet was saying it's the round bale. It has all this dust, and it's exasperating his lungs. He needs to be on grass. We only have 4 acres. We don't have grass. They live off hay and grain.
We have 4 acres, but 2.5 of it is pine.
It's wooded.
So that's why we cannot. There's no way to keep up the grass.
He was on steroids since we've been here. He had a fly allergy as well, which also exasperated his asthma.
Absolutely, yes.
It got to the point where he had dropped so much weight, and it was so difficult to keep weight on him. And he was on medicines, and obviously we battled his pneumonia every time. And he was on so much grain. It was awful. It was It was the most helpless feeling. He was such an enigma. And our vet kept saying, he needs to be on grass. He needs to be on grass. And I was like, okay.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. In our vet's defense, he did not say he needs to be on grass. He said, I do not see another application that could help him more than grass. And he was very positive about it. I just had to say because he wasn't shaming us. He was like, I mean, other than just putting him on a freaking pasture, that would be incredible, to where he has nothing but grass all the time. But where is that? Well, we might know someone.
Well, your initial reaction is, no, he needs to be with me.
Right. Oh,
I can
selfishly,
help him.
100%.
Like, you give me the medicines or what the regimen, and I will make this work. And so I will still prize myself on the fact that we brought him back from near death, like to the point where I had called the vet out and was like he's done. He looks like a walking skeleton. Right. I don't know what to do. He's eating pounds and pounds of food every day.
And that happened in 2 weeks.
It was awful.
He just
it was awful. And he's older. I mean, he was
upper 20s. I mean, he was.
No, he was 21. His birthday was St. Patrick's Day of 2000.
Right. Of course it was, yes.
And his real name was Viper Jax.
I mean, seriously. I mean, with a name like Viper Jax, I mean, gracious. Who gives them a nickname? But then the nickname was even epic, too. Pendleton.
So anyway, we got his weight back up, and then our vet was still like, okay. So at the beginning of the summer, you took him up to Athens.
Yes.
To where we used to board in Athens, which is rolling, beautiful hills of grass.
80 acres of straight up cow pasture land for the last 100 years.
It's absolutely gorgeous. It's where we boarded when we were out there.
There's woods on the side, so they have shelter, they have shade, they have open pasture.
And he went to a huge gelding herd, which he liked the girls, but he more tall. He and Willow were very close.
Him and Willow were close. Willow was not happy
loved
when
each
he
other.
left.
No.
But the only thing I will say is that him and Rowdy were closer. And so Rowdy was our horse, our Missouri Foxtrot. Right, our Missouri Foxtrot that we had to put him down for cancer.
We lost him to cancer.
Yes, unfortunately. But Pendleton, yes, he loved a gelding herd.
He goes to Athens, and we were hoping for just a little while. We were hoping in the cooler months we might be able to bring him home at some point. We had talked about.
Absolutely.
Because the heat didn't help any of the situation.
Right, and down here in Savannah to Athens, it's only 4 hours, 3.5 if you don't drive like a Nancy, but the temperature difference. I mean, you cross that fault line and you get to that mountainous area compared to the down south in the swamp. I mean, it's not the swamp, but the marshlands and everything. I mean, the humidity the breathing from someone who has allergies, it's much easier in Athens.
And the bug pressure is less up there.
Absolutely, yes. They
so
have
anyway,
bugs.
We thought we were doing what was best for him. Well, he gets up there and he starts losing weight again, even though there's ample grass. He doesn't get pneumonia, but he does start heaving a little bit. And so, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Nothing. The answer is nothing. We could have put him in a stall. We could have fed him.
Well, that's not true. We had a plan. When it started to get cooler, we were a week and a half away from bringing him into a paddock with his own little gelding friend and feeding him every single day some shockingly rich sweet feed.
Well, and
to see if that would just bulk him up.
As our vet says, there's always something you can do. It doesn't mean you should always do it.
Yes, he does say that.
And he is very, because I rely on their opinions. They see this every day, and I rely on their opinions when I'm making end of life decisions heavily. And I think they know that, and it puts a lot of pressure on them, but heavily. So anyway, this weekend was cold and rainy in Athens, and he couldn't get up. He laid down and couldn't get up.
In a blanket. He fully blanketed, winter blanket. Our barn up there is amazing.
So she got him up, and he still struggled all weekend to the point where Monday she didn't even tell us, and she called and had him put down. And it was kind of cool because the vet that helped him get off the trailer from California was the one that put him down
15 years ago.
So that kind of worked out.
Who got him off the trailer 15 years ago and treated him for colic was the one who had to put him down and said, "Holy crap, I remember this horse."
Yeah.
He may or may not have said, "That crazy lady from California still doesn't have him, does she?" Michelle said, "Oh,
it's fine.
Sorry,
she's fine.
She's
said off
nope.
grid."
Right, exactly. She said, "Nope, it's other people."
Yeah. So, same situation. I feel like we did every single thing we could do besides a ventilator, and
you can't say that.
She made that decision, and when she called, she said, "I made the executive decision because when we saw him last and he had dropped weight, we all had this conversation. He's an older horse. This is painful for him to fluctuate weight, and this is hard for him, and we don't need to make this worse for him than it needs to be." Now, I didn't know she wasn't going to tell us, so that was a little bit difficult, but
she still did it for us.
But she did it and took that decision burden off of us. So, in one way, it's upsetting. And then another way, I'm very grateful because that is the absolute hardest part.
And we'd have fought her.
We would have tried.
We would have found something to say. And she would just, "No, we all are wrong. You're not looking at her. You're not looking at him." I mean, I know her. She saw him.
You can see the light go out of their eyes.
Absolutely. And she said, there were 2 horses when we were in college that were up on that pasture that were with us forever. That the whole time we were there, and we had multiple horses in and out. And we used to take a grill out there and a cooler of beer and hang out on the pasture and make hot dogs. We loved it out there. Mm-hmm. And there was Jake and Bailey. Jake and Bailey, that's adorable. They had cute names and whatever. No, they were the old men.
They were so old.
They were the old men.
They
That's
were
what
like
everyone called them.
30-something.
Oh, they were in their 30s, 40s. I mean,
and they lived happily out there for a very long time.
And if they wouldn't get, and Bailey wouldn't get up sometimes. And so, no, it was Jake. Jake wouldn't get up sometimes. And if Jake wouldn't get up sometimes, you go out there and clap at him and he'd pop up. And then the days that he wouldn't pop up, you give him a little grain and some bute. And he'd give him 20 minutes. He'd pop right up when he got that bute in him and he felt fresh and he was moving around. They lived out there for years.
And when one died, the other one died not long after.
But
the point is, we trust her judgment.
Right. The point is, one day she said, "There's no way they're done.
They can't make it through the winter. They
can't make it."
And if he was,
I mean, they were done because you could see them turn off.
Yes, if he was like that at 50 degrees and raining, Michelle said he would have never made it through the winter. And
she's right.
And he would have suffered.
So right. He would have totally suffered.
So anyway, then I looked at husband when I had to call and give him the news and said, listen, it's going to be a tough one, but we have to talk about this week because it'll help us deal with it too. So we're not going to go into every detail of every story, but oops, I said your name. Hello. When he proposed to me in front of the horse he bought himself in college.
At the pasture where Pendleton was
living.
At
the pasture where we've been describing. Literally, he told me to get on. I looked at him and said, I don't need your help. I can get on a horse, even though she was 16 too.
Even though you couldn't. You just saw what was coming.
She was
had
massive.
To be a pain in the butt.
Well, you didn't. You weren't very secretive. You tried real hard, but you didn't.
I was freaking out. I had to ask you to marry me. What if you said no?
I still don't understand why you were nervous about that.
Because you didn't have to ask me.
I would have been like, hey.
No, you wouldn't have.
Well, anyway.
Nice.
So he wanted to give me a leg up, and he proposed. The pictures are adorable, even though she still has a halter on, because he was like, come on, come on. I was like, what? I'm about to put a bridle on and ride her. Why do I need your help getting on when she has a halter?
You can complain all you want. You said yes.
I'm not complaining. You didn't ask. I said, are you going to ask me?
And I said, are you going to say yes? Right. So you can point this out. I'll point it back out. Let's move on. She was amazing.
She was amazing.
I'm looking at a painting of her right now.
Yeah, I know someone Michelle gifted us a painting of her.
Yes, she did, because she's the best. And we got Pendleton because when Gwen had to leave, Michelle called and said, you might not want him. He's an ornery ass, but you can take him if you want him. And it was Pendleton.
And I said yes.
And Kira said yes.
And he said he wasn't ready. And I said, I don't care. Pendleton needs a home.
And
he didn't. He was fine up there.
He did.
He was so happy up there. Even in his even when we were there last time and he had lost so much weight, he was so happy.
And he's still running the herd.
And he wouldn't even come to us. He wouldn't even come to us. I was calling him.
That being said,
Big Jerky,
I did go out into the pasture, put a halter on him, bring him inside. He kind of like, at Kira, was annoyed that I brought him in, and then got down at Tiny and at her, right in her chest.
Listen.
And she laughed and rubbed his face, and then he was like, all right, I'm done. And then he just started pulling me away.
Side note, one of the top 5 moments of my life is bringing her out to the paddock. She was 2 days old. And I'm taking her out there. And I thought, Willow would be very nurturing and matronly. What is that word?
Maternal?
Listen,
you're using the wrong adverb.
Whiskey's getting into my head. Anyhow, I thought it would be Willow. And if not Willow, I thought it'd be Cinnamon. I didn't think Rowdy would give a flying flip that I had a baby in my arms. Or Pendleton. Excuse
Listen
you, Pearl.
Listen here, Gruntopotamus.
It was Pendleton. Willow just kind of looked at her. Cinnamon was just like, oh, okay. Rowdy predicted.
Rowdy.
He didn't care.
He stayed in the woods.
He didn't care. He was such a funny horse. I love him to death. And so, anyhow.
He's beautiful.
Pendleton was the one that came up to her. And I have Arthur. Gosh, said your name again.
It's ruined.
Sorry, your incognito is over. He caught it on camera. Pendleton came up to me, sniffed our 2-day-old infant, and was his eyes, and seeing how he was an ornery old man. Like he tried to kick me lots of times. Like he was not nice more often than not. And he was so gentle and so calm. And he sniffed her. And then he nuzzled my face. And I just looked at him. I had tears in my eyes and was like, wow.
Right, but then what did he do after that?
I don't remember.
So, I don't remember all of that. But, we're selfish individuals. Humans are selfish just by God-given birth. But, so he walks up. He smells Tiny. He nuzzles Kira. And then he looks at me. And gives me a head nod. Like, good job. And then looks back at them and sniffs Tiny again and sniffs Mom again. And then he turns around and walks away. He not only acknowledged the little one, he said hi to Mom, he told me good job, and then he walked away. It was
one of the coolest moments of my life.
Fascinating.
Like, if you ever ask me, why do you own animals?
That right there.
That's my top story.
Right, that right there. And then I actually had a good friend of mine recently, I was just rambling about stuff. There's not many people that I actually talk to about things, and they're one of them. And so I was, just kind of talking about Pendleton and how it just sucked. I mean, honestly, it just is not fun. And they said, I've had animals my whole life. And this sounds strange, but the horse part of it is a whole nother level to me because they're so huge. And I started laughing like, yeah, they're bigger. They're dogs and they're big dogs, and it just depending on how you are.
Some ways.
Right, exactly, in some form or fashion. They're just larger animals. There's right, but they're just bigger. Like, they have bigger souls. They have more energy. They have larger than life traits that just would affect you in different ways than other animals. And that, to me, is just fascinating. And that's a whole nother level of stuff that I've never dealt with.
It's a connection.
And and that's what it came down to, that I never realized it, but it is a connection that you're like, wow.
And when that connection's broken,
it's tough.
It's really hard.
It's not fun.
It's really hard. And you put so much time into these animals, and you try so hard to give them a good life and make sure everything's... I'm sorry.
And unfortunately, they're not all Alf. They don't all talk to you and tell you things. So you hope you're doing the best, but that's all you can do.
So anyway, this horse that we put... Another horse that we put so much time and effort into...
Oh, Lady
and
Gwen.
Loved her so much, Gwen.
She was my first horse.
It was his first horse, and he didn't even want a horse, and I forced this horse upon him,
All
and he
you had to do
paid
is tell me
for
her
her.
name.
Yes, her name was Lady Guinevere, and
The lady.
Stars aligned, and he bought this horse. I didn't even pay for this horse; he bought it himself in college.
It's amazing how manipulative you can be.
Listen, I did the same thing for his dog, and he got her too.
Hey,
all you have to
she's
do.
the bomb.
All you have to do is
Make him the background of your laptop. You jerk.
You want this puppy so bad, stare at her every day, every minute. Anyway, I did the same with Gwen because I had a horse. So I wanted him to have a horse. And she was wonderful. All of them are so cool.
She was horrible.
Yes, we put so many hours of training into her.
She was horrible, but at the end of the day...
We did groundwork for months.
But at the end of the day, she took care of me and she taught me how to be a horse
Well,
person.
and that's when you learn about the differences in mares and geldings.
Yep.
Mares are a lot more work. They have all their hormones and they're feisty when they want to be. But they care so much. And I'm not to say that geldings don't, but it's like this very...
It's rare, though. Geldings are different. Almost every mare, if you can get that attachment, it's another level of grasp.
Is.
There's a reason I'm the only freaking male on the farm. Drakes don't count.
Yes,
but I'm
right.
saying,
What about Reggie? Reggie the rooster.
RJ is my boy. That is correct.
Reginald.
I will count RJ in my. There's two of us. There are two males on the farm.
Yes. Anyway, so...
And we'll see about Uncle Waldo.
He was doing... when we were apart for a year, because he went to college for an extra year than I did.
Yeah, overachiever.
Yeah.
We started the same.
And, it was really hard while we were apart. We'd never been apart. And, we both dove into our animals even more. So
Absolutely.
He was riding almost every single day.
I was riding every day. sometimes 2-a-days, and then I would work a double shift at the restaurant I was at, and then in between, so I'd get up, ride, work a shift, go work the barn, feed and muck stalls and whatever, and take the dogs out to the farm and let them run and play, and then go back and do the late night.
Right. So his connection.
I have too much energy.
You had it before.
Oh, but that was a whole nother. Yes, absolutely.
You made this one-on-one connection that didn't involve me. And people ask me all the time, how did you get your husband to like horses? I didn't. Yes, I facilitated and forced some things.
Force is the right word. No, it wasn't. She was just more of a suggestive, like, if you can't ride my horse. It was more of a like if you're enjoying this, you can't ride one
two horses with one ass, but you can't ride one horse with two asses.
Well done. Well done.
So yeah, he needed one too. We needed to do this together as a team. So we're getting there. It's gonna be a long one. It's a hard night. Sorry for the time. Pause it. Come back if you need to. So anyway, he brings her home when he moves home to Savannah. She's not even here 2 weeks. She's not even here 2 weeks, and she colics. Now, this is a horse that he proposed to me on. Like, it isn't just a horse. Like, one of our life moments, our chapters of life, she was involved in because she was so significant and so important in our lives, as were everyone else, but she just happened to be there. She colicked. Everything was twisted inside, and you saw the light. You saw the light go out of her, and Pearl, I'm telling a story.
And as always, the animals provide the comic relief.
Yeah, and it was the first time we really had to do this.
That was the bad one.
It was the first time for a horse for either of us.
I mean the bad one. I mean the first one.
And we had done like our family dogs, but it's not the same when it's your full decision and your responsibility.
Absolutely.
But you have to look out for the light in the eyes. And when they tell, especially during a colic, when they're in immeasurable
pain. If you know your animals, they will tell you. They will tell you. The light in the eyes is just, I just wanted to translate that a little bit, that they will pay attention. They'll tell you. Yeah. Gwen told us.
And
she totally told us.
There was nothing we could do.
She looked at me. She put her head in my chest. This horse was a solid 2,500 pounds. I mean,
she was huge. She was Percheron.
She was a Percheron.
Beautiful.
She was a flea-bitten
Percheron
who had a head. When she put her head in my chest,
that was the size of my body.
It was absolutely. I mean, her head went from knees to nipples. It was
huge.
It was insane, and she was wider than a couch. Like, you did not need a saddle.
She was like riding a sofa.
She was absolutely riding a sofa because she didn't even have a spine. I mean, she was so wide that you could sit on her and, like, you got off, and the only soreness was how wide your legs had to be from riding her. Mm-hmm. And her mad was just comical. It was just a bunny hop. I mean, like, and you're like, think that.
And it was when you asked her to go faster. She's like, no.
Right, and you thought it was an earthquake, and the person standing on the sidelines is like, yeah, no, she just, like, took a jump. Like, you're fine. And so she was sweet as could be. She was gigantic. And if she went down, and she would, I mean, I'll never forget the vet telling me, get out of the way, because they were giving her meds to try to keep her up, and I would just freaking plant a foot and put my shoulder under her rib cage and hold her up.
But she just kept collapsing.
Right.
A real colic, like a hard, gosh, it's the worst to witness.
It's worse, but
there's nothing you can do. No. I mean, you can pump them full of all the things, and sometimes miraculously they get over it, but if there's a twisted bowel or a twisted...
That's what it was.
There's nothing
they couldn't get past a certain point in the bowel. I mean, it was quite obvious, but they were telling me to get out the way, and I would say, and I didn't know any better. I was very, very ignorant in the whole farm life role, but that horse would put weight on me, I'd plant a foot, and she'd lean the other way. She would not follow me. She was colicking. She was dying, and she would not follow me because that's the way it was. And the amazing part is that we only had her for 1.5 years.
I know, it felt like forever.
It felt like forever.
But we learned a very valuable lesson.
Very valuable. Gwen taught us a lot.
She did, and that was our first horse that we've had to put down. We weren't there.
No.
We walked her out to where she was going to be buried, and she a lot of time went, oof, I'm not.
There's lots of things, right? She let us know that it was time. And she laid down.
if they inherently know this, at least in our experience, they sound off. So it was the middle of the night, and Willow called to her, and she called back, and all the other horses sounded off, and she said goodbye. Oh, y'all, sorry. And she laid down herself, and that's unusual. Normally, a horse is standing, and you give them an injection, and they fall and die. It's not a nice, graceful fall. It's they collapse.
Well, it depends on your vet.
Yeah, if your vet's like 6'5", they can guide them down.
He's a beast.
But we didn't have him then. So we were scared. We were scared to witness the last minute, and she laid down on her own very peacefully, and we told her goodbye, and we walked away. And I never regret anything. I don't have regrets because everything's a lesson. I regret that immensely. We should have stayed. We should have been there the last seconds, and we weren't. Also, when your horse is dying or going to die, take a piece of their tail. You're supposed to take a piece of their tail. It's a thing you do. I forgot to do it, and I'm upset about it.
The tail thing doesn't stick with me. The not staying with her does make me a little sad, but I have in my process through it all. She laid down, and she gave me a big sigh, and she closed her eyes. I mean,
Well, and here's the worst part about it all.
She forgave us.
And the part that we've had to rehash this 8 years later. She is 3 houses away from being developed upon.
Yep.
Someone bought the barn. It's a mile, not even a mile. It's a half a mile down the road from us. Someone bought the barn and developed it into a neighborhood. There are so many horses buried on that property.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate for the person who builds a house on there because I'm going to have to show up every June 12th and pour a Guinness out on him for her. Because
we did that for years.
I mean, that horse loved Guinness. And
we
so,
did that for years.
Just if you buy that place, just hi, my name's Arthur, and I'm here to drink a Guinness with my horse. I'm sorry, your house is here.
3 houses. They're slowly going down the road, and she's 3 houses. And I look every time we ride by, and I'm like, oh. And we went to the meetings before the planning meetings,
and told them
like, our horse is buried here. And the developer was like, and of course, it was an underhanded sale. There was no option for anyone to buy the barn.
Oh, we tried.
We tried. And he said, oh, well, when we're doing site work, do you want to take her? No. Listen, I saw her in life. I don't want to see her in death. Mm-mm. And, like, we're a big believer in, like, she, obviously it's just her bones, but, like, no, thank you. Yeah. So anyway, so now we've had to kind of, like, deal with it again. Because every time I ride by, I'm like, well, they're not there yet. Well, I hope it's a nice family. Well, she's fertilizing their yard. Like, I just, it's hard. So, lessons learned from that one. Then you come Rowdy, our Paint Missouri Foxtrotter that Michelle from Athens gave us. And he was older. Funny, quirky horse. Like, his muzzle was a thumb. He could open gates. He could open doors. He got into hay sheds and ripped out all the hay. He got into feed bins. I mean, he did things that aren't physically possible by those animals. You need an imposable... oh my gosh. Imposable thumb. I can't...
I mean, seriously.
I can't think.
You were there and then you got scared.
Don't give me whiskey anymore.
I didn't even put any in there. It was a lie. It was a sugar pill.
I can taste it. So, anyway, he had cancer when he got here. We knew he had issues.
He's had it for years.
Because it was melanoma. I mean, it was skin.
It was on his lip.
Skin cancer, sun cancer.
Yeah. Right.
So we just treated it. And we treated it, and we thought we got ahead of it. Well, at some point, it got really bad. So I called the vet out, and we had been, like, topically treating it. He'd had a few other issues that we weren't sure if they were related to that or not, but I call Reese out, and he says, let me paint this picture.
I was about to say, I'm going to tell this part.
I'm 8.5 months pregnant.
Right. Kira's about to pop, okay? And we had a scheduled C-section, but she's about to pop. And he comes in and says, you got to put him down. Okay. Yeah. What? Listen.
He called and had a conversation.
I love our animals. I do. But you do not drop that bomb on an 8.5 month pregnant lady with her first baby dealing with all sorts of stuff, and this is her horse. Do not tell me to put him down right now. Are you crazy?
Yeah,
I mean, what are you doing?
I lost it.
That was a fun week. And then we finally were like, no, we're not doing it. Like, we're going to let him go. We're going to let him go, but keep living
because he was so...
But even if we just had to put him down, okay, like, this is just logistical me being a butthole, okay? Say we put him down that day. Okay, so now you're telling me I have 2 weeks to get the hole dug, get him put in the hole, to bury the hole, and grieve before we welcome our daughter. Yeah, no. Rowdy, I love you, buddy, but you're going to have to take this one for the team.
And he was not on death's door.
And he wasn't even close to death's door.
No, he was still rideable.
Right, but blah, 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 blah.
But so it had jumped to his lymph nodes.
Exactly. He had a terminal illness, and it had jumped to a point to where he was going to be much worse, much quicker. However, we decided, we're gonna let him go because he's breathing fine, he's eating fine, he's pooping fine, all the fun things that you need to do.
He still has a spark,
right? Like, all the things, right? Yeah, he's still a pain in the butt. He's still opening frickin' sheds and moving chains off of fences like a butthole that he was. So he's doing all these things. Let's let him go. 2 years later.
2
years later. And so that's just more of we're basically telling you that part of the story to reaffirm the whole, know your animals. You can see it in their eyes. That's part of it. That you can tell. Rowdy was not done. That boy was not done. Medically, he was done. Mentally, that boy was not done.
No, and our daughter got to meet him. Absolutely. Whether or not she remembers, I remember. We never rode him again, but it didn't matter. No, it wasn't about that.
We just weren't going to put him through it. Yeah, but it was just part of it.
And then, he was a great horse.
He was.
And when it was time, we knew.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the part where the Gwen stuff kind of tears you up inside, but the Rowdy part doesn't because that boy lived.
No, and we had a cat.
He was ready to roll.
We had a 4-year-old cat who had a heart disease, and he went downhill quickly. We knew he might die eventually. We did exhaust all efforts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was also pregnant. It was early pregnancy.
Yep.
So I might have gone a little further.
Right. But you're also waiting for me to get home. I was out of town for a week.
Right. And I needed you to be home because you needed to bury the hole or dig the hole. And with a horse, it's not you don't just dig a hole. No, you have to get an excavator and you have to find one, pay for somebody. With Rowdy, we were fortunate enough to know like next Tuesday this will happen. So by Friday we need the hole dug and
it doesn't always work like that.
It doesn't always. And then if you don't have a tractor, you need someone to fill the hole in. And not to mention, when you do have a tractor, you have to drop your own horse into this hole.
That's not fun.
That's not fun. So thankfully our vet threw us a bone on that one, and he
didn't throw us a bone. He's awesome, and he decided to take care of that for us.
I
asked him to, and he helped
drop
me with
the body
because I don't know how to do it. I'd never done it before, so he helped me, and he operated the tractor.
And you had forks on your tractor that lifted him and put him. And Rowdy did not lay down. It was a whoosh, and life left him, and he fell. And that's hard. Like a dog, they're laying there. They most often they drug them before they lay down. Like horses drop, and that's traumatic. It's not fun. But our vet is so large, he guided Rowdy down, so it wasn't like a horrible situation. But anyway, so same thing with a cat, terminal illness, exhaust all efforts, and at the end of the day, I remember taking this cat to the vet, and I'm laying in the back seat with him crying. He was only 4 years old, and I had already lost a cat to heart disease at 2. Like, my college cat. Pearl. And I apologized to him, and then I thought to myself, wait, like, think about the time you did have. And that's what people ask us, how do you do this? I can't have animals. I don't understand how you do this. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you any of this is easy. It's not. And when that decision is yours to make on whether an animal lives or dies, like, ugh. And then when it's long drawn out, it's almost worse.
But it's also an honor because that's part of what we're doing here. We're trying to help. We're trying to move things along.
And they deserve dignity and respect
and
to the very end.
It's my honor to help them as much as humanly possible.
Absolutely. And to the people that ask me how I do this and they can't have animals, I would never, whether it's a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 21-year-old, and God knows how old Rowdy was. He was probably 30. Gwen was,
he was at least 75.
15. No matter the age of the animal, no matter how long they were with me, I would never trade a day that I had with them and enjoyed them and their personalities and their presence and them, so I didn't have to deal with the loss. And they hurt. Gwen died 8.5 years ago, and it hurt.
It still does.
It was 2 months before our wedding.
Yeah,
it was awful.
Damn, selfish Gwen.
But she was wonderful.
She was amazing.
And she'll forever be the horse that you proposed to me in front of. So, I know we got caught up in a lot of stories, but I didn't want you to think we were just, oh, we lost a horse and a cow this week, so we're going to talk about death. We have had experiences, and I'm never...
It's also different depending on your life and where you are. So, like, the Gwen thing is because it's an early piece of us that was important. It's very important. It was, I mean, like I said, I mean, she's hanging on the wall. I mean, she's gorgeous. She taught me a lot as a person.
I boo-hooed for days. I took off work.
Yeah, I remember.
And I cried hysterically for days about Gwen.
She taught me a lot about life, just in general, because she was one of those first animals. My dog and my cat are right there with Gwen because they were the first ones, and so they get you there in different areas, and then it's that part of your life that you lost, and there's all sorts of other things like that, and then not even to mention the proposal and all that fun stuff. But then it's also, then you get into the later in life, it's like, okay, well, now we're talking about Pendleton. Well, then we had to tell Tiny about the Pendleton and the kitten. And they're sick, and they had to go to the hospital, and they didn't make it. And I mean, even Granny,
you'll never see him again.
You'll never see him again because she knows Pendleton's in Athens. That's where he is.
So now she's walking around going, Pendleton's not in Athens,
right? But Willow, Cinnamon, and Sava, they outside. Yes, they are, Tiny. They're not going anywhere. But then you also have when Granny didn't make it, when poor Granny died, then she was like boo-hoo crying because that was her chicken that she saw every day. That was one of the ones that she put up at night. I mean, it's just... It's different levels of life, different levels of, or not levels, but I guess levels. We always say level up, but it's different times of life, different parts of it, different, do you have a tiny one? Do you not have a tiny one? Is it personal? Is it group? Is it marital? I mean, it's all the things. It's like, whew, all those feelings, but I wouldn't freaking pass up any of my memories with them to remove any of those feelings. And, I mean... They're what help us keep going.
Even if they try to kick you.
Absolutely right, buttholes. Just turn around and kick them back. For the record, don't ever kick Pendleton. He will kick you back.
Well, One thing that we forgot to mention at some point was how not only do we deal with death, but how do our other animals deal with death? And that, when Pendleton started going downhill, it was right after Rowdy died. When Chatta really struggled with grief, it was when D'Artagnan, our cat, died. They were super close. And yes, you're struggling too, but then you have animals around you that are struggling with their grief too, that you have to kind of rise to the occasion and make sure that they're okay too. I mean, it's not like a grieving person, so it's not like, you're on standby or just doing everything you can, but it's still, they're still here. And you still have an obligation to them. So it might be really hard to feed the horses the day after we have to put a horse down. It might be really hard to go out there and see that empty space, but we still have to do it. And for their sakes, we have to give them some grace for the next few days, weeks, months for dealing with the death on their own, which they don't always do. But if they're really close to the animal that has left, typically what we've seen is that they definitely do. So if I had to sum all of this up, it would be do the best you can with what you have, like your means. A lot of times people let you do payment plans. I mean, even to buy Gwen, you did payment plans, but...
Yeah, she did. She let me do 3 payment plans.
Yeah, so always ask for a payment plan. A lot of times... Especially in that situation, they will. Now, when we got the bill for Gwen, it said euthanasia. And that just stabbed me. So this time with Rowdy, Arthur looked at our vet and said, could you do me a favor? Could you just type in any random thing when it comes to the price line for euthanasia so we don't have to read it? And he goes, yeah, sure. Which, of course, he did. Because just seeing... I understand. Of course, I want to pay my vet for their services, but seeing the fact that I paid to kill my horse, That's hard to swallow.
I forgot it did.
That one's a hard one.
I bet you changed that one to flowers and rainbows.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, buddy.
But this is how, I mean, yes, it costs money to do this.
Oh,
yes,
absolutely.
It costs money
all does, yes.
to treat them.
That's
whether
part
it's
of your
terminal,
obligation to them.
Absolutely. Whether it's terminal or short-term illness. And then, yes, you have to pay for the actual euthanasia. It sucks, but you do.
That's a great point.
So ask for a payment plan if you need one. If not, like we said on the budgeting podcast, we have a vet credit card. We put vet bills on it. It costs about $200 for euthanasia. I know. I just paid it yesterday or 2 days ago. No, it was yesterday.
It was freaking yesterday.
Yeah, and then same, you did it on Sunday. We put it on the vet credit card and we pay it down when we can. However, if by small sums or large. Then, if you are close to your animal, even if you're not, we'd have that kitten for less than 24 hours. You can see, pay attention. Don't just Google. Ask people that may have expertise in that area if you have access to them. It was $15 to call my vet after hours. I don't care. $15 is nothing when it comes to I need information personally for me, not just what Google says.
Or just don't buy that 12-pack.
Yeah, exactly. Say no to things that you don't need so you can have this freed up. So, ironic because we're drinking whiskey right now. But
I didn't buy the 12-pack. I bought the Pendleton whiskey. That's not ironic. I was proving my point.
So anyhow, don't be cheap. And if
don't be cheap.
I mean, don't be cheap.
That's just rude.
When there's an animal dying.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, everything's different for your family and what's right for you and your situation and all that fun stuff. But it's all. You also have to understand that that's part of this.
It is part of it. And you know what? Maybe someone would have handled that kitten on their own, like put it down humanely somehow. I wouldn't have been able to do that, but maybe you do. I don't know. I'm not condoning that, but maybe you have the mental means to do that. I don't. I would much rather a vet handle that and humanely do it and be done with it. You know, we haven't even mentioned like death by butchering or, in order to feed your own family. And of course, A, because we haven't done it yet, we plan to, and B, because it's instead of ending a suffering or ending a long-term illness, suffering of some kind, you are choosing to take this animal's life in order to enrich your own nourishment. And you still have to deal with the actual death of that animal, and they still deserve respect and dignity at the end of life. Of course, you want it to be as painless as possible and as quick as possible. And there's a real struggle. There's a reason we haven't done this yet, because you are ending a life in order to gain your own nourishment. So after we do that, possibly we'll have some more insight to that from a personal level. Just from hearing other stories, it is one of those things where it never gets easier, I don't think, for people, but they appreciate every minute they have with that animal, for the most part. Of course, I'm generalizing, but if you love and care for animals, it doesn't matter if that animal's bred or here to feed you, you still care for it, and you still care about its death. So we won't dive any further into that topic, but it's definitely one of those things that I didn't want to forget. Point 3, not just know your animal, but also know yourself. We say that a lot, but know yourself and know the limits that you have. So I look back on Gwen and how could I have left her in that last moment of her life? Like, how was I okay with that at that time? And it was because I was scared. And if you're going to be scarred for life by that moment, and if you're going to, it's going to be so traumatic for you that you're not going to be able to get past it, then don't put yourself through it. Your animal, if you truly love them, they know it. And that's comforting in itself. And that's what I always found comfort with in Gwen. She knew we adored her.
Oh, absolutely.
And she was loved in the short time that we had her that felt like a million years. So then I would just say, God bless you. Because when it comes to that moment, when you do have to make this decision, and then the moments afterwards, when that presence is no longer there, it hurts so badly. You're missing this piece of your farm, of your life. And you're not invested in every animal like this. It's not, you don't have this close connection with every chicken or every duck. Like, I remember the first chickens that died. I boo-hoo cried for days on those too, and we buried them. We don't do that anymore. You have some practicality, and that's what I was talking about earlier. You get this hardiness where you can see, like, chickens live tops like 8 years, and the ones that die earlier, whether it's from sickness or they're not the most sturdy animals on the planet. Like, they do die. And at some point, even if they have names, you're like, well, Deborah died today. Well, there goes Brenda. I mean, obviously spread out. And you don't get so attached to where it hurts so much. But when you have, like, mammals, I always say the mammals are different.
Yeah, I know.
But when you have your dogs and your cats and your horses that you spend so much time with, and even you might be attached to your chicken. I mean, no harm in that. Oof, it hurts. And you have to be able to move past it at some point. Like, we're going to be upset about Pendleton. And when he comes up and we talk about his moments that stick out in our minds, we're going to be sad, just like Gwen. And it could be forever. But we're at peace with what happened. We're at peace with how it happened. We're at peace with our decision making. And you just do the best you can. And don't beat yourself up. Yes, get second opinions like we did on all of it.
Get reassurance if you need it.
Yes, I needed it. Did I mess this kitten up? No, I didn't. Thank God. But be okay with your decision, because at the end of the day,
it's confidence.
Yeah, be confident
in your decision.
At the end of the day, you're doing what's right for them, even if it's the hardest decision. You're making the choice to end their life, to shorten their suffering, and letting them go. You have to let them go. They don't live as long as us. And it sucks, and I'm sorry. And this has gone really long, and it's been really sad. But I hope you learned something out of it, because it helped us cope. That's for sure. Do you have anything else to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks, y'all. Next week won't be so sad, I promise. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
See you, buddy. Enjoy yourself.